I would like to call the Human Resources Appointment and Equity Committee meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Calling the roll, Ms. Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Germana. Mr. Germana is absent. Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Hairston.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Hopefully everyone had a few minutes to look over the minutes from the November 18th meeting. We might have to wait on that because I was not here to,
I'll make a motion.
yeah, but I wasn't here to vote on it. I can't vote on them, I wasn't here.
You don't have to.
Okay, it'll be good?
Yeah.
It's not a quorum needed?
Second from Anthony and we're good.
Okay. All right. Approval of the minutes from November 18th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. And I'd like to thank Councilman Gallagher for chairing the last committee. He did a wonderful job. Sorry to leave a lot of work on him, but he did excellent. Can you read the first piece of legislation into the record, please?
Resolution 2014-0286, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Mayfield Village participation in the Cuyahoga County Benefits Regionalization Program for the period 1/1/2015 through 12/31/2017, authorizing the county executive to execute the agreement and all other documents consistent with this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Thank you. And who is here this morning to speak to this matter?
Good morning, Lisa Durkin from the Department of Human Resources. This is our second contract with Mayfield Village. They began in the regionalization program with us in April of 2012, as you can see from your handout that we've provided. The initial contract in 2012 was a savings to the city of approximately $198,000. The city continues with us with 3 different plans, 2 with Medical Mutual of Ohio and 1 with Metro Health Select. They have 58 employees who are members of the program.
And I know we've covered this in the past, but I don't remember if Councilman Hairston was with us. So, Director, if you could just go over what exactly are the benefits to the county for the regionalization program?
Certainly. So benefits to the county include a lower stop loss rate. As our pool becomes larger, we will be able to procure stop loss at a cheaper rate. Also, as we become larger, those administrative service fees that we pay to the carriers like Medical Mutual of Ohio, United Healthcare, et cetera, decrease as well.
All right. Can we show that Councilman Germana has joined us in the meeting? Ms. Durkin, you provided the savings to the municipalities when you gave us a printout before, exceeded over 3.2 million. What is exactly the anticipated cost savings for just Mayfield Village? Is that the 1 point?
That's the $198,000 when they initially joined in 2012. In perpetuum, then their rates are on the lower structure.
Okay. And we won't be able to know these rates until the 2-year period is up?
I
the
can certainly
savings?
send you the rates at which they're renewing, yes.
Okay. Okay. Did anything change in this agreement from the last one?
No, ma'am.
And with Rita and South Euclid joining in 2015, did this have an impact on the amount of the reserves the county will put aside for healthcare costs?
So it doesn't have an impact on the amount of reserves that the county sets aside, because the county, deals with the reserves for the county employees. The municipalities and the organizations that participate in the regionalization program cover their own reserves. And what we do is we build that into the bills that they pay monthly, and over the 3-year period, those municipalities and those organizations contribute to the full reserve of their fund. They are fully reserved now, and all of the rates that we set forth and the bills that we set forth work to maintain that fully reserved status. And when people come in, that appreciates for those people coming in, and they cover their reserve status.
Okay, I thought it was something mentioned in the last committee that if, that we kind of hold, if they drop, if Mayfield Village drops today, then we still need to cover the claims.
That's correct.
So would that be, wouldn't that be included in our reserves?
It is, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And since this is Mayfield Village second reading, second agreement in this program, it can go to 3 readings. You don't have an issue with it?
It may, this is January 1st start date, so if you would like that, it would. We, request consideration for suspension of the rules, adoption on second reading, only to facilitate, the timely contracting in this case, but, for your consideration.
Any other questions from Councilman Germana?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The, with these tough times for municipalities, I'm just wondering, is there any, we require these sub-cities to keep their own reserves. Is there any, how do you want to say, monitoring that? What happens if, cities are running low and, they need to pay some bills, something happens in that city? It seems like maybe that's something that they could tap the reserve. Can you just speak about that? Is there any requirements of this program that they keep the reserve and prove they have it?
Certainly, to the chair, to the councilman, they don't have access to the reserve. So the money that they pay to put in reserve in the regionalization program, we actually hold in a fund that they do not have access to. So if they do fall upon hard times, they have no access to dip into that money. That reserve is a mandatory requirement and remains in the control of the county. No access from the cities. We do, however, when we are in the underwriting process, we do look at ability to pay and examine and analyze the city's balance sheets and other financial statements. Not that that would help in the case of a large risk. It still is a risk, but as you know, we the minute they don't pay a bill, we have the opportunity to cut them off and then run out their reserves.
Director, the city's reserves are kept in our care, but are they in a separate fund from our
Yes,
reserve
ma'am,
fund?
they are.
So
They are
that's-
separate from county reserves.
So that's what you mean by separate but connected?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other further questions? All right, hearing none, can I have a motion to move this to the Committee of the Whole for second reading suspension?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Ordinance 2014-0035, an ordinance amending Chapter 303 of the Cuyahoga County Code to update the Civil Service Code of Cuyahoga County and declaring the necessity that this ordinance become immediately effective.
Thank you. And who's here to speak to this? Is it on?
Did you hear me?
I hear you now.
So we have this proposed ordinance before you today, which we have drafted in consultation with the law department and the HR department. And essentially, this proposed ordinance does 3 things. 1, it clarifies the administration of the classification and compensation plans. 2, it establishes laws governing the county's employment testing operation. And 3, it establishes a framework for the PRC's legal compliance duties under the charter. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any questions about the ordinance.
And what was your first one? It clarifies
The administration of the classification and compensation plans.
any questions from the committee? I can't find my ordinance at the moment, but in section 124.14, job classification, it states that the commission will have the authority to change classifications. And moving forward, does the commission feel that there will be significant changes to the classifications? And I believe I was looking at this computer last night, so I'm trying to find the breakdown here.
Rebecca Kupczynski, Administrator for the PRC. Currently, the commission, I think, has that authority in place, and they do recommend modifications if they feel they're warranted when they're presented by the Human Resources Department.
Does the commission feel that the work done by the Archer consultants need to be changed in any way? So if the classifications, if you deem so that there needs to be changes, I know we've had Archer as the consultants for the classifications, is that our intent or your intent to move forward with them if there needs to be any changes, or we're pretty much done with the Archer consultants at this time?
Well, the changes that have been brought before the commission up until this point were driven largely by the reorganization, and I think presented by the Human Resources Department to effectuate those changes. Going forward, I don't think the PRC has in mind to do wholesale changes to the class plan, but as the organization of the county continues to evolve under new administrations, there may be cases where there are additional changes that need to be made to restructure jobs or redesign jobs or design new jobs for that matter.
The commission shall assign each classification to an equitable pay range. And what did number 3 that was deleted in its entirety state? And I had talked to
Yeah,
Mr.
so,
Carl earlier
so
about this.
this section 301, or 303.01, that section is actually the pay equity ordinance. The pay equity ordinance went through revised code section 124.14 and made changes to that code section.
Okay.
So these portions that say retained in its entire, deleted in its entire, refers back to the revised code. And this was not a change that's made per this ordinance. It was made in the pay equity ordinance, which is already in effect.
And that went through the law department, I'm sure.
Correct.
Right, right. The section when a director determines to reclassify or reassign an employee, I just was reading it, and I could be wrong, but I felt it should be a specific time allotment given to the employee, possibly a month written notice. And I apologize for not, I didn't want to, I was saving paper, I didn't want to print this out and
Yeah, I have the
mark my
section.
little sections,
I have the section.
saving ink.
So go ahead. What was the question?
There was a section when it discussed when a director determines to reclassify or reassign an employee. And it just stated all the procedures or whatever, or how you would handle that, but it didn't give a time allotment to that, to the employee. So I was just thinking, like, if a director's or the county decides they don't need a certain position anymore and they want to reclassify that employee, which could decrease their salary, there was nothing stated in writing to kind of what is the notification that we're going to give the employee of that?
Right,
So
and-
I just thought, and that's open to discussion if people think that there should be a time allotment put in there.
Well, now, this isn't a change that affects the timing that is contained within the PPM and within the PRC rules. So if an employee has a job action that is taken against them, they have the opportunity under this section to meet with the director and the director of HR and discuss those changes and see what the director said. The director then comes out with a final, I don't want to call it order, but a final action, and then that action is appealable to the PRC.
But you see what I'm saying? There was no time allotment for the employee. So if the employee's sitting over here waiting for us to make all these decisions and things, their bills are still amounting up. So I was just wondering, was that thought to, do we need to state that in the ordinance that as an employee, you have this amount, if the county decides we're gonna reassign or get rid of this position, it kind of gives the employee a time frame. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's just kind of where my mindset was at.
I guess what I'm saying is that the timeframes are contained in other legislation,
okay.
in PPM
Gotcha.
and in the PRC rules.
Gotcha.
Madam Chair. So do we state in the legislation that the timeline will be followed based on other legislation? Do we put that in there at least? I mean,
I think it would be
serve as
a
a
lot
resolve to your
clearer
point.
that they would have to go to your administrative rules, correct? That's where
And
it's
the
listed.
PPM.
And the policies, procedures. manual.
So now we're working on an amended document. If a candidate is removed from the eligibility list due to school, military, or other reasoning, and then the appeal to the PRC to be put back on, if the candidate is permitted back on the list, I was kind of confused, will their name remain on the list for a year of the original date of the application or the date the PRC approved their eligibility? Because there was a section talking about,
It goes back to the eligibility list date. So the eligibility list is in place for 1 year and it expires after
so
1
that would be
year.
the original
Correct.
date.
Correct.
So if they didn't make the eligibility list for whatever reason or asked to be off, and the PRC appealed and they were put back on, it goes back to the original date.
Correct.
Okay. That wasn't clear in there, so I don't know if that needs to be clear. I just want it to be clear. And what is the rationale behind the candidate being allotted only 3 times for certification?
That was a request from the former HR director. Ohio Revised Code provides for 4. And the former HR director had asked that we make it 3. And I guess it's an operational reasoning.
So I want to be clear on certification, so that means that each candidate has 3 times to try to take the test.
No, to be considered for appointment,
Okay,
To a
so they've
position.
passed the test.
and they've been considered 3 times.
Okay,
Now, it's limited to an appointing authority, so let's take a secretary, so that's across the board in county. So say that person is certified to the sheriff 3 times, the sheriff no longer gets that name the next time. If the eligibility list is still in effect for a year, and say he needed 1 secretary, and then a month later needed another one, all the way down to now we're at number 4.
within that year period.
Right, within that year period, then that
Okay.
person would not be on that eligibility list. But if the fiscal office needed a secretary, that person would appear on the fiscal office. So it's by appointing authority.
Okay. And if you could just please explain, this is my last question, if there's some others, please explain section 303.06. I was not clear who the individual is referring to. It was getting late, so I probably should have understood.
Right, individual meaning the appointing authority, the hiring authority.
Is there any other questions from the committee?
Madam Chair,
Councilman Germain?
I see there's this substitute.
Yeah,
When are we going to consider that?
I just noticed the substitute in the thing, so you can ask, the question I would like to be asked is, first, what is the substitute before us and what is it entertain? What changes?
I'll back on.
Yeah, so we're on substitute number 2, right?
I believe this is actually there's only one proposed substitute in this packet. There had been some minor technical changes and logistical clarifications related to how testing procedures would work between the PRC and HR and the law department, and just some of the logistical issues that, that might arise there. So the proposed substitute was really meant to address that. None of them are major or significant substantive policy changes in any way, but this was developed, the substitute was developed by the PRC in collaboration with the law department, so.
Okay, well then I make a motion that we're working from the proposed substitute document. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is that the strike-throughs, Mr. King?
Yes, on the, if you look, it was done in track changes, so on the left, you'll see something on the margin on the left-hand side where there are changes in the proposed substitute. There's like a line. And then the strike-throughs and underlined areas are the change language.
All right, any other questions from the committee? Bless you. You good, Councilman Germana?
I just wanted to, I was trying to go back and forth and see what the changes were. Now, I just wanted a minute to look at what was changed.
That's fine.
I see there was a change in the reduction in pay. And I know that that's been a concern. I'm just wondering what,
And could I let the record reflect that Councilwoman Simon is in committee?
what's the change on that reduction in pay?
The change in the reduction in pay definition was to have it mirror what the state law says. Chapter 124 says really that that reduction in pay does not include changes to benefits. So when it says, nor shall a change in the cost of an appointing authority's insurance or other contributions be considered a reduction, that for the purposes of our code is meant to merely mirror what is in the state civil service code.
And I guess the other major change here is in the pay equity at the beginning. And it's saying that if there's a conflict between the code and the Cuyahoga County Human Resource Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual, the provision of this code shall govern. With adopting this code, are we going to make changes to the Human Resources Personal Policies and Procedures Manual?
The only change that comes about is, I believe it's section 5.02 or 03 of the PPM, which says that the HR department shall conduct employment examinations. It's to that effect, that they will do the civil service testing.
Okay, well, since this is saying this code is going to be the dominant one, I think we should probably be changing, if there is a need to change any of the Human Resources and Personal Policies and Procedures Manual, so that any confusion, it's nice for an employee to know certainly what procedures are going to be followed, and so if there's some conflict.
So you're saying add that this language into the policies and procedures manual?
No, it's saying that if a conflict exists between the procedure manual, this code shall govern. One's got to be stronger than the other. So,
And I would anticipate that when the policies and procedures manual is updated, that it would be amended to include this change.
And that's what I stood up to say, was that, yes, once this is passed, the Policies and Procedures Manual will be reviewed and any changes made for the employees' understanding to be clarified.
Okay, thank you. Any other changes or questions? Councilwoman Simon?
Just briefly, Madam Chair, obviously there needed to be cooperation with HR and together. Are you satisfied with how this is transitioning and transition from HR's perspective?
Thank you. To the chair, to the councilwoman, yes, ma'am. We have met now twice since the beginning of November. We have been and continue, we are continuing in talks about how this will operationally change things, how we will operationally make a smooth transition and create smooth processes and procedures so that the employees and the supervisors in the county that are hiring can be serviced in a timely manner, and so that we can still present a thorough, fair, and equitable manner in which we are onboarding our new county employees. So yes, we're quite satisfied. We've had meetings and we continue to have meetings regarding this with the PRC. We're looking forward to partnering with them further.
Any further questions? Hearing none, I would like to move this legislation as amended and with also the additional correction that we added today to the full council. Second reading, there's, I believe, we have two committees, another committee, so it'll be third reading by the 18th. Is that good, or?
By the 18th of December? Yes.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any miscellaneous business? Anyone signed in for public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Meeting adjourned.